Okay, let's think about this. What if getting rich wasn't, this complicated game of luck, not just for the super lucky or the geniuses or people born in the right place?
Right.
What if instead building wealth was, well, exact, like a science, as predictable as, say, algebra?
Hmm.
Could there really be some kind of hidden code, a set of rules for prosperity that anyone, could actually learn and use with results you could count on?
That's exactly the really electrifying idea we're diving into today. It's a big one, and we're drawing heavily from this foundational book, W.D. Waddell's The Science of Getting Rich, specifically Chapter 2.
Oh, Waddles, yes.
Yeah, it's a text that really makes you rethink a lot of common ideas about money. It's influenced a surprising number of people over the years, and well, for good reason.
And this isn't just theory, right? We want this deep dive to be like handing you a VIP pass, not just to info, but to really getting how prosperity works, the mechanics of it.
Understanding the mechanics.
We want to help you unlock maybe a deeper connection with the whole idea of wealth. Feel it more, understand it better.
Absolutely.
Think of this as more than just listening. It's about boosting your own confidence, your belief that you can acquire wealth, by connecting you really deeply with the principles that actually govern financial success, moving from just hoping to knowing.
Knowing, exactly. And to make this whole journey clearer, we're going to break it down a bit. We'll look at it in a few different themes, sort of group the concepts together.
That idea.
We'll start with the core idea, the really radical premise, that wealth is an exact science. Then we're going to, tackle some of those common myths, things people believe about getting rich that Waddell says just aren't the main drivers, beliefs that can actually hold you back.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that part.
Yeah.
Busting some myths.
Yeah. And finally, we'll explore how universal this whole science is, how anyone really, no matter where they're starting from, can begin using these ideas like right now, today.
Okay, I am ready. Got my metaphorical notebook out.
Yeah.
This feels like one of those conversations that could really shift things for people.
Yeah.
So, let's dive right in. What's the absolute foundation of Waddell's thinking here?
Okay, let's do it. So that first big claim, the one that kicks off Chapter 2.
Yeah.
It's bold. Waddell's just puts it out there. There is a science of getting rich, and it is an exact science, like algebra or arithmetic. No hesitation.
An exact science.
Okay.
Okay. When I hear that, my brain jumps to like chemistry labs or physics laws, gravity, things where if you follow the steps, you know what's going to happen. It's predictable, not fuzzy.
Right. Precise.
So calling wealth an exact science,
Yeah.
what does that really mean for someone trying to build wealth? How does that change the game?
Well, the implication is huge, really. If it's an exact science, it means getting rich isn't random. It's not arbitrary. And it's definitely not just about luck or, who your parents were.
Okay.
It means there are actual processes, predictable ones, replicable ones, principles that if you understand them and you apply them, they work consistently.
So it takes it out of the realm of mystery, like winning the lottery or something.
Exactly. It moves it from that, or being born lucky, to something governed by rules. Rules you can measure, understand, and crucially, learn. It gives you a framework, a kind of formula, maybe, for success. And if you follow it properly, the outcome is basically guaranteed.
Wow, guaranteed.
That's the idea. It frees you from sort of chasing luck or needing someone else's approval. It's not about being chosen. It's about mastering a method.
So it's not just a nice thought or some motivational phrase. He uses the term mathematical certainty. That phrase really jumps out. It suggests it's almost unavoidable if you just get the steps right. Like Waddell's is handing us a blueprint, not just advice.
That's a great way to put it. A blueprint. Think about it like a chemical formula. If you take exactly 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, right conditions, you don't hope for water, you get water every time.
Right. H2O. It just works.
Or think of architectural blueprints for, a huge building.
Yeah.
Follow them precisely. Use the right stuff. The building stands. It has to. This science of getting rich is presented with that same level of certainty. It's not about crossing your fingers. It's about understanding the laws and obeying them.
Right.
knowing the result will follow. It also means maybe that your current bank balance isn't about your worth. It's just a result of the inputs you've been using in this science experiment.
That shifts the focus.
Yeah, it shifts it from what's wrong with me to maybe, okay, what principles am I missing or not applying correctly yet?
That feels, really empowering.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that way? Like success, especially financial success, was some kind of exclusive club for the lucky ones or people with some secret handshake you didn't know.
Oh, definitely. I think most people feel that at some point.
So what if, like Waddle says, it's not a mystery, it's just laws? Laws you could learn and use.
Yeah.
What possibilities does that open up? For you listening right now, in your own situation, for me it feels like a path just appeared where there was a wall before.
It really can feel like that. And this idea of certainty, the scientific predictability, leads right into his next big concept. He calls it the certain way.
The certain way, okay.
The book states really clearly that getting money, owning property, it all comes as a direct result of doing things in a certain way. And anyone who does things in this certain way will get rich.
It's a huge difference, isn't it? It's not just what you're doing the job, the product, the investment strategy.
Right.
It's how you're doing it, the method, the approach.
Exactly.
The approach.
That sounds like it's giving you something really actionable. It moves the focus from just the goal to mastering the how. Less destination, more navigation, maybe.
That's a good analogy, navigation. And Waddles draws a really key distinction here. He points out that some people stumble onto the certain way almost by accident, or maybe they figure it out consciously, and they get rich.
Okay.
But then people who don't do things this way, they remain poor. And here's the kicker. No matter how hard they work or how able they are.
Wow. No matter how hard they work, that challenges so much. It really does. It's a crucial point. It's not about just grinding harder, putting in more hours, or even having raw talent. It's about the specific way you apply yourself, aligning with these principles. Think about putting together complicated furniture without the instructions versus using them.
Oh, yeah. Been there. Nightmare.
Right. You could sweat and struggle for hours without them, put in massive effort, and still end up with a pile of wood. The certain way is like having that instruction manual for wealth.
That makes so much sense. And we see it all the time, don't we? Like, imagine two bakeries, same town, same street, maybe even selling similar stuff. But one is just thriving, expanding, people lining up. The other one struggles. Same effort, maybe even longer hours, but they're barely making it.
Exactly that scenario.
The certain way idea gives a really clear explanation for that. It's not the location, not the bread. It's how they're running things, how they're applying these principles.
Precisely. So, for you listening, imagine you've been working like crazy, pouring everything into your job or your business. But the results,
Yeah.
they're just not there. Not what you hoped for.
Yeah. Frustrating.
What if there was a specific way, a learnable method, that could actually unlock much bigger results from the effort you're already putting in? What does that idea do to how you think about effort versus outcome? It suggests maybe a smart, aligned method beats brute force. Always.
It makes you stop and think about the approach, not just doing more of the same.
Right. Which leads us perfectly to the third core idea. The underlying logic for this whole science. It's the natural law, like causes, like effects.
Because it's like effects. Okay.
Waddles quotes this directly, like causes always produce like effects. It's fundamental. Therefore, anyone who learns these laws about wealth and follows them will infallibly get rich.
Infallibly. That word again. It just pounds home the certainty, doesn't it?
It does. And this principle is the foundation. It's what makes the certain way predictable and reliable. It basically removes the doubt. If you consistently use the right methods the certain way, the outcome isn't just likely, it's guaranteed.
So it makes it a universal thing, not random, not dependent on the economy suddenly booming or getting lucky.
Exactly. It's subject to laws, immutable laws, like planting an apple seed. You water it, give it sun, good soil.
You get an apple tree, not a banana tree.
Right. The result is built into the cause. It's not magic, it's nature.
It's like gravity. You drop something, it falls. Always. No, maybe, no, sometimes. If you consistently apply this certain way, wealth follows just like that.
Well, it's revolutionary for a lot of people who see money as unpredictable.
It really is. Can you think of times in your own life where you saw that? A consistent cause leading to a predictable effect. Maybe learning an instrument. Consistent practice done the right way.
Yeah, definitely. Or following a recipe. My grandmother's cake recipe, same ingredients, same steps, always the same amazing cake. Perfect example. Or training for a race. Consistent, structured training builds endurance. It has to.
Right.
So how does taking that basic principle, cause and effect, are linked, they're predictable, and applying it to getting rich? How does that change how you see it, its attainability?
It makes it feel less like wishing on a star and more like building something, step by step, actionable.
Turns if only into how can I?
Exactly. Okay, so we've got this foundation. Wealth is a science. There's a certain way, and it works because of cause and effect. Predictable. Now, you mentioned myth busting. This is where Wattles apparently takes aim at some common beliefs about getting rich, things that he says aren't the main reasons.
Yes, exactly. He systematically goes through several widely held ideas and basically says, nope, that's not the primary driver. This gets really interesting because it pushes back against so much conventional wisdom.
I'm ready. Let's hear them.
Okay, myth number 1. Environment is the key factor. Wattles argues pretty strongly that getting rich is not mainly about where you live or your social circumstances or even the industry you're in.
Wow. That goes right against location, doesn't it? Or it's all about who you know. But his evidence is just observation. He says, everywhere we see rich and poor living side by side in the same environment and often engaged in the same vocations.
Exactly. Just look around.
Think about it. If environment was everything, whole neighborhoods, whole cities, whole states would be all rich or all poor. And that's just not how it is. You see huge differences within the same place.
That's the core of his argument. Now, he does add a little nuance. He says, sure, some environments may be more favorable than others.
Good practical reality.
And yeah, you generally need to be around people to do business. But these things are secondary. They're not the reason. If you have two people, same business, same town, same economy, and one gets rich while the other fails, well, it can't be the environment causing the difference, can it?
No, logically it can't. It has to be something else, something they're doing differently.
It points to their internal approach, how they're applying principles, not just reacting to conditions.
We've all seen that, right? Those two coffee shops in the same corner.
Yeah.
One thriving, one dying. Same location. This idea really explains that. It means your zip code isn't your fate. Your starting point doesn't lock you in. That's huge.
It is. So if you've ever felt stuck because of where you live, felt limited by your town, or circumstances you thought you couldn't change, what new perspective does this give you? Where should your focus really be?
It suggests it's not about finding the perfect place outside,
but about cultivating the right approach inside, being effective right where you are.
Bingo. Okay, myth number 2. This one hits home for a lot of people. The idea that success depends entirely on having some extraordinary talent, being brilliant, a genius.
Oh yeah, the talent myth.
Yeah.
This stops so many people before they even start, feeling like I'm just not gifted enough.
And Wattles basically says that's not it. He offers this really reassuring message. Success is not just for the super talented. His evidence, again, observation. He says, look around. Many incredibly talented people are poor, while conversely, others who have very little talent get rich. Think about that. It's true. Brilliant artists, musicians, writers who struggle financially, and then you see people who seem, well, average, building fortunes.
Right. Wattles describes wealthy people generally as an average lot in all respects, having no greater talents and abilities than other men. They're not rich because they possess some unique magical gift others don't have.
It's not about being a financial Mozart or an entrepreneurial Picasso.
No. It's because they are doing things in that certain way. The focus shifts completely from who you are innately to what you do and how you do it.
A method over magic.
Exactly. Now, there's a small caveat, obviously. He says some degree of ability to think and understand is, of course, essential.
Okay, you need basic comprehension.
Right. You need to be able to grasp the ideas, follow the steps, but here's the key. The bar is set incredibly low. He says, any man or woman who has sense enough to read and understand these words can certainly get rich.
That is incredibly encouraging.
It really is. It just blows away the need for perfection or genius or having some special intellectual gift. It's about access and application, not innate talent. It also implies that making mistakes isn't failure. It's just learning, refining your application of the science.
So if you've ever held yourself back, thinking, I'm not smart enough, I'm not talented enough, comparing yourself to others, how does this idea boost your confidence? What does it say is really needed for success?
It says it's not about a fixed thing you have or don't have. It's about a method you can learn, a skill you can develop. It opens the door.
Okay, myth 3. This one might ruffle some feathers.
It might. It's the deeply ingrained belief that the key to getting rich is just saving money, thriftiness, being frugal.
Right. Save your pennies, live below your means, pinch every dollar. That's like financial advice 101, isn't it?
It's definitely common advice. And look, being sensible with money isn't bad. But Wattles argues that getting rich isn't simply the result of being extremely frugal or hoarding money.
How does he argue that?
Again, observation. He points out, many very penurious people are poor, while free spenders often get rich.
That makes you think. People who are super tight with money but never seem to get ahead, and others who seem more relaxed with spending but their wealth grows.
It suggests that just holding on to money, maybe operate up from a place of scarcity, isn't the main wealth-building engine.
So what is?
It distinguishes the certain way from just being cheap. It's not about how desperately you cling to money, but how effectively you generate it and then how you use it within this certain way. It suggests wealth isn't static. It's not just about piling it up. It's more dynamic. Generation, circulation, maybe investment back into the process.
Like a river, not a dam.
That's a great image. A river creating energy as it flows, not a dam just holding water back. Wealth in this view is more like a productive system. It needs fuel, it needs direction to keep growing. It's about using resources wisely to create more resources, not just stopping them from leaking away.
So for you listening, when might focusing on doing things in a certain way to actually create wealth be more important than just extreme saving? Than that scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
What's the deeper message here about what really drives financial growth? It feels more proactive.
Expansive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Proactive and expansive, not just defensive and restrictive. It definitely challenges some common financial conditioning.
Okay, what's the next myth?
The next one challenges the idea that success comes from doing things nobody else is doing, finding some totally unique action or invention.
The innovator myth. Our culture loves that story, right? The lone genius who disrupts everything with a brand new idea.
We do. But Waddle says, hold on, he states very clearly, two men in the same business often do almost exactly the same things, and one gets rich while the other remains poor or becomes a bankrupt.
Same actions, different results. Again.
Exactly. It hammers home that point again. It's not primarily what you do, but how you do it. It's not necessarily about groundbreaking novelty.
So you don't have to invent the next big thing. Apparently not, according to this. It reinforces that the way is paramount. It's not about finding a totally different path or a new gadget or an untapped niche. It's about applying this certain way to the actions you are taking. Actions that maybe lots of other people are taking too. It's in the subtleties, the how. Think about two salespeople selling the same product.
Okay.
One applies these principles maybe in their mindset, their customer interaction, their follow-up, how they think about value. The other just goes through the motions.
The actions look similar from the outside. Calling people, showing the product.
Right. But the underlying approach, the way, is totally different. And that's where the different result comes from.
Okay. Think about a time maybe you tried to just outwork everyone.
Right.
Or felt you had to constantly out-innovate, maybe got burned out by it.
Right.
What does this tell us about the real difference maker? What does that little word way really add to the picture, it feels like?
Yeah.
Refinement, mastery of basics.
I think that's a good way to put it. Refinement and mastery, not just frantic newness. Okay, last myth for this section. This is a big one, too, that traps a lot of people. The belief that wealth is only found in certain industries, certain jobs, the hot
Oh,
sectors.
yeah, you got to be in tech. Or only doctors and lawyers make real money. Or get into finance. We hear that constantly.
Constantly. But Waddles refutes it directly. The evidence, again, is just looking around. People get rich in every business and in every profession, while their next-door neighbors in the same vocation remain in poverty.
Every business, every profession. That makes wealth seem much more democratic, universally possible.
Exactly. It frees you from thinking you have to chase the current trend or get into a specific field just for the money. Now, he does add some practical points, like, sure, you will do best in a business which you like. Makes sense.
Enjoying it helps.
And one that's suited to your locality, maybe, and uses talents you actually have. These things can help. They're like optimizers.
They make the journey smoother, maybe.
Right. But they are not the fundamental reason for wealth. They're secondary. The main engine is always learning and applying the certain way, whatever field you're in.
That's profound. It means your passion can align with prosperity. You don't have to choose.
Precisely. So have you ever felt stuck in a job, in a field, or maybe afraid to pursue something you love because you thought, nah, I can't make money doing that?
What does this unlock for you? This idea that the certain way works anywhere.
Yeah.
It puts the power back on you and your method, not the industry trends.
Which is the perfect lead-in to our final section, and maybe the most hopeful part. The path is open. Waddles really stresses how universal this is, how accessible, and how you can start from anywhere right now.
This is so crucial because after tearing down all those myths, environment, talent, saving, unique actions, specific jobs, you might wonder, okay, so if it's none of those things, why isn't everyone rich? What is the barrier? And the message here is incredibly positive. Your natural ability, your IQ, not the barrier.
Right. He hammers this home again. Talented people get rich and blockheads get rich. Intellectually brilliant people get rich and very stupid people get rich. Physically strong people get rich and weak and sickly people get rich.
He covers all the bases there.
He really does. It means the only essential degree of ability to think and understand is basically, like, can you read this book? Can you grasp these ideas?
You can understand what we're talking about right now.
Then the door is open. That's the message. It's incredibly democratic. It champions a growth mindset. Success isn't about fixed traits you're born with. It's about becoming a student of this science, learning, applying, refining. Mistakes aren't proof you can't do it. They're just part of learning how.
When have you maybe underestimated yourself? Thought you needed some special gift you didn't have? How does this idea empower you? Knowing it's not about being born special, but about applying principles. It makes success feel less like winning the lottery and more like learning to cook. A skill.
A learnable skill. And following that, he circles back to location and business choice, but now focusing on taking action right now. He states it so directly. If anybody else in your town can get rich, so can you. And if anybody else in your state can get rich, so can you.
That's just a direct hit on any excuses about your surroundings. No wiggle room there.
None. It doesn't ignore that business involves people and places, but it firmly states the main driver is you're learning to do things in a certain way. The focus swings right back to you. Internal.
So the implication is, if you're not getting the results you want where you are, but someone else is doing basically the same thing,
then the difference is in the way. You are not doing things in the same way that the other person is doing them. That's the conclusion. It pushes you towards self-reflection, towards figuring out how your approach differs, rather than blaming the town or the market or looking for greener pasture somewhere else.
the solution is in your approach, not necessarily in changing everything externally.
Exactly. So when do you catch yourself thinking about limits? My town's too small. My field is too crowded. How does focusing on the certain way change that? It makes it about your actions, your method, puts the control and the responsibility right back with you.
Okay, and now, the big one for so many people, capital. Money to start.
Ah, yes. The perceived lack of capital, probably the most common reason people feel blocked. And Waddles addresses it head-on with incredible reassurance. No one is prevented from getting rich by a lack of capital.
That's just, wow, a huge weight lifted for anyone who's ever thought, I can't start, I don't have enough. We've all felt that, haven't we? Can't launch the business, can't make the investment, can't chase the dream, not enough seed money. But he flips that completely.
He totally flips it. He explains the getting of capital is a part of the process of getting rich, and is a part of the result which invariably follows the doing of things in the certain way.
Wait, so capital isn't the starting point. It's a result.
It's a result, a consequence, an outcome of applying the principles correctly. You don't need it before you start. It comes as you go.
Picture that. Capital isn't this barrier you have to climb over first.
No. It's something that starts to build up, maybe organically, as you work in this certain way, like building blocks appearing as you follow the blueprint. It comes from the value you create, the trust you earn, the opportunities you attract, because you're operating this way. It's generated by the process.
That is such a game changer. And he uses that extreme example, right?
He does, to really drive it home. You may be the poorest man on the continent and be deeply in debt. You may have neither friends, influence, nor resources, but if you begin to do things in this way, you must infallibly begin to get rich.
It's an incredible claim. Almost unbelievable.
It's incredibly bold, but it stems directly from that core belief, like causes produce like effects. The method itself contains the power to attract the resources, not your starting bank balance.
So for anyone listening who's ever felt like giving up, postponing a dream because of lack of funds, what does knowing capital is a result, not a requirement, change for you? What feels possible now? It just wipes out one of the biggest roadblocks people perceive.
Focus shifts from what you lack to what you can do.
And that leads right to the final, most practical point of all this. The certain way means you can start now, right where you are, no waiting.
That's the beauty of it. The how-to is immediate. Waddle says you can do so by beginning in your present business and in your present location to do things in the certain way which causes success.
Present business, present location. Start now.
Exactly. No need to quit your job, move cities, wait for funding. Start where you stand with what you have, but change the how. Apply the principles to what you're already doing. Take charge of your approach. Don't wait for the perfect external conditions. They might never come.
That makes it so incredibly practical. So actionable. It really boosts your confidence because it says you can start making progress today. It just removes all the excuses. It empowers you right now. It shows, confidence just to begin, to learn, to accept there's more to learn.
It's an invitation. Step onto the path right now.
Okay, so let's wrap this card up. The core message from Waddles in this chapter.
To recap, yeah. Wealth isn't presented as a mystery. Not luck, not just for the gifted. It's positioned as an exact science, with predictable outcomes. Guaranteed, even, if you understand and consistently follow the certain way.
And it's universal, accessible to basically anyone willing to learn and apply its laws.
That's the essence of it.
So the big question for everyone listening then is, if wealth really is a science, if anyone can learn its laws, what specific actions, maybe even small ones, can you identify in your own life? Actions you can start taking today to align with this certain way. How could changing your how start to change your results?
Yeah, we really encourage you, challenge you to apply this. Start noticing. See these ideas in action, maybe in people you see succeeding. Or reflect on your own habits, your own approach to work and money.
Maybe pick, say, 5 key ideas or sentences from our chat today, and just consciously try to bring them into your thinking this week. See what happens.
That's a great practical challenge. And listen, there is definitely more to unpack here. In future deep dives, we'll get more into the specifics of what this certain way actually looks like in practice. This foundation is crucial, but it's just the start.
Absolutely. This is just laying the groundwork for understanding prosperity on a whole new level. Definitely stay tuned.
And for more insights like this, things that hopefully empower and inform, please do like, share, and subscribe to The Deep Dive, your journey into the science of getting rich. Well, it's really just beginning.
Okay, let me ask you something. What if acquiring wealth wasn't just, stumbling into a lucky break? or possessing some extraordinary talent you were born with, or maybe waiting for the perfect circumstances to just fall into your lap.
Right. Instead of all that, what if?
What if instead it was something far more predictable, like an exact science?
An exact science.
Yeah, with principles as reliable, as consistent as algebra maybe, leading to financial success with, get this, mathematical certainty.
Wow, mathematical certainty. That sounds, well, it sounds pretty revolutionary, doesn't it?
It really does. Almost too good to be true for a lot of us, I'd imagine.
It truly is a paradigm-shifting concept, as they say. And while that's precisely what we're going to explore in this deep dive today, our mission really isn't just about expanding your vocabulary, although that's part of it.
Right.
It's more about unlocking a truly nuanced understanding of, a pretty profound philosophy about wealth. We're going to dive into this specific framework for thinking about financial abundance that honestly might challenge everything you thought you knew.
Sounds intriguing.
And in doing so, we hope to equip you with the precise language, the right words, to actually talk about these complex ideas. Ideas about success, abundance.
Because the words really matter at that level, don't they?
Absolutely, because for any advanced understanding, whether it's science, philosophy, or like here, wealth acquisition context and the proper usage of these specific words are absolutely key. You can't really grasp it without the language.
You've hit on something really important there. We're talking about words that aren't just, definitions you might look up in a dictionary somewhere.
Exactly.
They are, in a way, like keys that unlock a whole new way of looking at financial freedom and maybe personal agency, too.
That's a great way to put it. Keys.
So how are we going to unpack this fascinating material today? What's the plan?
Okay, good question. We'll kick things off by thoroughly exploring the core philosophical concepts, the ideas that really underpin this whole science of getting rich. That's where we lay the foundation, you see.
Makes sense. Start with the basics.
Then we'll move on to tackling, and the source material really does this head-on, effectively debunking some very common misconceptions about wealth, the kind of ideas that often, probably inadvertently, hold people back.
Clearing the clutter. I like that.
Precisely.
Right.
Following that, we'll dive into the accessibility and the universality of this approach, revealing that according to the text, it's not limited by your natural talent or how much money you start with or even your current circumstances.
Okay, that sounds pretty empowering.
And finally, we'll wrap up by exploring some of the more nuanced vocabulary and the common idioms that really bring this entire philosophy to life, helping you articulate these powerful ideas with real precision.
I'm genuinely excited about this deep dive.
Yeah.
I mean, the claims made by the source material are so bold, potentially life-changing even.
They are.
And the language used to articulate them is equally powerful, it seems. Before we jump right in, just a quick note to you, our listener. Our goal today is really to unpack the language and the specific philosophical framework presented in The Science of Getting Rich.
That's right. We're exploring the ideas within this text.
Exactly. To help you understand its unique approach to wealth. We're not necessarily endorsing these viewpoints as, universally accepted truths.
No, our aim is more about equipping you with the vocabulary so you can engage with these concepts thoughtfully and, understand the perspective of the original author.
Right. So let's begin to truly unpack this.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive straight into the bedrock of this philosophy then. Our source material, The Science of Getting Rich, it makes a truly bold claim right from the get-go.
It really does.
It doesn't just present wealth acquisition as like a theory or maybe a strategy you could try out. It's something far more definitive. It calls it an exact science.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly does the author mean by that? Exact science.
That's a crucial starting point. When the text uses the term exact science, it's really not just a casual metaphor. It's not flowery language.
Okay.
It's a foundational statement. It's directly likening wealth acquisition to fields like algebra or arithmetic, fields known for their precision.
Right, like 2 + 2 = 4. That kind of certainty.
Exactly. Think about the certainty you have when you do basic math. 2 plus 2 always equals 4. There's no guesswork, no variability, no sometimes or maybe.
Okay, I see where you're going.
So the profound implication here is that acquiring wealth, according to this text, operates on predictable laws and processes. These are principles that when you understand them and consistently follow them, lead to success with the same kind of inevitability, like a scientific experiment yielding the same results under controlled conditions.
So the core insight isn't just that wealth can be predicted, but that by viewing it as a science, it fundamentally shifts our sense of personal agency. Is that it?
I think so.
Instead of feeling like, a victim of circumstance, just waiting for opportunities or luck, you become, in a way, the scientist in your own financial lab, understanding and applying the principles.
Precisely. Yes. It absolutely removes wealth acquisition from the realm of chance or pure luck or even some kind of mystical magic.
Right.
It firmly places it in the domain of discoverable, applicable principles, much like, say, gravity or the laws of thermodynamics. They just work.
And that framing,
yeah,
that makes it feel achievable, doesn't it?
It does. That framing is so useful, as the outline mentions, because it transforms what many people perceive as an elusive dream, maybe even an impossible one, into a systematic, achievable pursuit. It's basically saying, learn the rules, apply them consistently, and the results are not just probable, they're guaranteed, according to the author anyway. It offers a level of operational confidence that contrasts really sharply with the common uncertainty most people feel around financial success.
And building on that idea of an exact science, the text goes even further. It promises mathematical certainty. That phrase, wow. It truly packs an emotional punch, doesn't it? It sounds almost too optimistic, given the ups and downs of the real world.
It does, and I think that's intentional. Mathematical certainty means absolute assurance. It's the guarantee that if you diligently learn and precisely obey the governing laws of wealth acquisition, then the outcome, the acquisition of wealth itself, is guaranteed and predictable, just like that math equation we talked about.
No room for doubt, then.
According to the text, no. The author claims the results are definite. Imagine, just for a moment, approaching your finances with the same unwavering certainty you have when you solve for X in a straightforward algebra problem.
Knowing the answer will always be the same, every single time.
That's the level of predictability the text posits for wealth if one truly follows this specific path. It offers a level of security in financial pursuit that, frankly, most people just don't consider possible.
That's a fascinating promise, this mathematical certainty. But, for many listeners, that might sound almost too good to be true. Real-world complexities, unforeseen events. Does the text acknowledge any caveats, any challenges to actually achieving this certainty, or is it really presented as this ironclad guarantee?
Well, the text presents it as an ironclad guarantee if, and this is the crucial part, if the laws are precisely followed.
Ah, okay. So the potential failure isn't in the science itself.
Exactly. The challenge then lies not in the laws themselves, but in the individual's consistent and accurate application of them. It's not about the laws failing, but about the practitioner, the person, failing to adhere to what the author calls the certain way.
Okay, the certain way. That leads us right there. It sounds almost mystical or like a secret code or something.
It can sound that way, can it?
But from what you're saying, it's actually grounded in very practical, learnable principles, right?
Absolutely. The certain way is defined in the text as the fundamental learnable method or approach to doing things. And the key is that, when applied, it invariably, meaning always, without exception, leads to wealth.
Invariably. Wow.
Yes. And this isn't just a method among many. It's presented as the primary determinant of financial success.
The primary determinant. More important than other things.
Yes, that's a crucial pivot from conventional thinking, because it explicitly states that this specific way of doing things far outweighs factors like your environment or your natural talent or even how thrifty you are.
So it's not about where you are or who you are, but how you act.
Exactly. It's asserting that the method is more important than the external conditions or your innate abilities.
Yeah. So the liberating insight here is that it simplifies the path quite dramatically.
Yeah.
It's not about what you are or where you are, but fundamentally how you do things.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite an empowering shift. It suggests the power truly lies in your consistent actions, regardless of your starting point.
It really is. It suggests that success isn't something granted by external factors, but something cultivated internally through specific actions. And this core idea ties directly into another scientific principle the text invokes, the natural law that like causes produce like effects.
Ah, okay. Cause and effect.
This forms the very logical backbone of the entire philosophy.
That's a classic scientific principle, isn't it? Applied here to wealth. It sounds almost like a blueprint.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. A blueprint. This natural law states that the consistent application of the correct actions, which in this context means following the certain way, will inevitably lead to the desired outcome, which is getting rich.
Inevitably. Another strong word.
Yes, this law forms the foundational logic for the predictability of the whole wealth acquisition process. It powerfully reinforces that exact science concept we started with.
So pure cause and effect.
Pure, unadulterated cause and effect. Think of it like a finely tuned machine. You input the correct components in the precise sequence, and you will get the expected output.
Or like cooking.
Exactly. Like cooking. We often say in everyday life, if you follow a proven recipe precisely, using the right ingredients in the right way,
You get the dish you intended.
you get the dish. Those are the like causes producing the like effects. If you deviate from the recipe, even slightly,
The outcome changes.
right, and you can't blame the ingredients or the oven, it's the process that was altered. The author claims wealth works exactly the same way.
That makes it incredibly clear. So you're saying wealth isn't some random occurrence, some lightning strike of good fortune,
Yep.
but a direct consequence of specific, consistent actions, which brings us directly to these terms: primary determinant and wealth as a result of action.
Yes, these terms are really central to understanding the mechanism here. Primary determinant, as we said, means the most important or fundamental factor, the thing that directly causes or influences an outcome.
And the text says that's not environment or talent.
Correct. And this is where it gets really counterintuitive for many people. The text argues that common beliefs like your environment, your natural talent, or even just saving money are not these primary determinants.
Wow. That challenges so many ingrained societal beliefs, doesn't it? Things may be passed down through generations.
It really does. And wealth as a result of action is the core principle reinforcing this. It says acquiring money and property isn't random. It's not a lottery win.
Right.
It's a direct, predictable outcome of specific, learnable actions and approaches, all undertaken within the framework of the certain way. It's an active process, not just passive hope.
That's a huge shift in perspective for so many people. It implies you have immense agency. It really empowers the individual. And the text really hammers home this predictability, this certainty with these powerful adverbs like invariably and infallibly.
Yes.
What's the subtle difference between those two, and why are they so crucial to the author's argument here?
Good question. They are indeed key adverbs that underpin the author's confidence. Invariably, as we noted, means in every case or always. It emphasizes unwavering consistency.
Like clockwork.
Exactly. If something happens invariably, you can count on it every single time without exception. It highlights the reliability of the process.
Okay. And infallibly.
Infallibly takes that a significant step further. It means incapable of making mistakes or being wrong. It ensures a guaranteed, unassailable outcome.
So the system itself can't fail.
That's the claim. It leaves no room for error or failure of the system itself. These words are absolutely central to the text's assertion of predictability. If you follow the certain way down to every last detail, the results, according to the author, aren't just highly likely, they are absolutely assured, guaranteed.
And that's what instills the confidence, maybe. That profound sense of absolute control over one's financial destiny.
I think that's the intention.
It shifts the mindset from just hoping for success to having this clear, supposedly guaranteed path, a kind of scientific detachment from the usual emotional roller coaster of financial struggles.
Well put.
And I'd encourage you, our listener, maybe start noticing these words: invariably, infallibly, certainty, not just here, but in other discussions. Wherever predictability and assurance are being discussed, you'll see how powerfully they convey that sense of absolute reliability.
That's a great suggestion. Pay attention to the language of certainty.
Right.
Okay, so now that we have firmly laid the groundwork for this idea of wealth as an exact science.
Right, the foundation is set.
It's crucial to address what the text does next, which is it systematically and quite emphatically debunks or refutes common misconceptions about how wealth is actually acquired.
This is where it gets really interesting, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because the source material is challenging so much of what we've just been taught or what we maybe intuitively believe about getting rich. So let's define these terms first, just to be clear. Debunking, refutes, and misconceptions. What exactly are we talking about here?
Okay, good idea. So to debunk basically means to expose the falseness or, the hollowness of an idea or belief. It's like pulling back the curtain on something everyone assumes is true and showing it's not, or at least not the primary truth.
Okay. And refutes.
Refutes is similar, but maybe a bit more direct. It means to prove a statement or theory to be wrong or false, often using counter-evidence or logical argument. It's a stronger rebuttal.
Got it. And misconceptions.
Those are simply views or opinions that are incorrect, usually because they're based on faulty thinking or maybe incomplete information or just a fundamental misunderstanding of how things work.
Right. So why is this section so important? Why does the text take the time to meticulously debunk these things before really diving deep into the certain way? Why not just tell us the certain way straight up?
That's a great question. This section is absolutely crucial because these common myths, these misconceptions, they often act as significant mental and emotional barriers.
So roadblocks.
Exactly. Cognitive roadblocks, preventing people from even starting to pursue wealth effectively using this method. By systematically dismantling them, the text essentially clears the path. It makes space for accepting and then applying the certain way.
Like sweeping away the debris before building.
Precisely. Removing faulty foundations before you can build a solid, dependable structure. Without addressing these ingrained beliefs first, you, the listener, might just dismiss the certain way as unrealistic because it clashes so much with your preconceived notions.
That makes perfect sense. You need to create that clear mental space first. And one of the first major misconceptions it tackles is a big one. That environment is not the primary factor.
Exactly. A huge one. The text clearly argues that your geographical location, your community, your socioeconomic conditions, they are not the main cause of wealth.
How does it argue that?
Well, it highlights, with pretty keen observation actually, that rich people and poor people live side by side in the very same areas, often within blocks of each other.
You see that all the time in cities.
All the time. And this directly refutes the idea that environment makes people uniformly rich or poor. Because if environment were the sole, or even the primary determinant,
you'd expect everyone in that area to be roughly the same financially.
Exactly. Everyone in a given neighborhood or town would be similarly wealthy or similarly poor, which is demonstrably, obviously, not the case.
So if you're in a struggling neighborhood, it doesn't mean you're destined to struggle financially. And if you're in a wealthy area, it doesn't guarantee you'll be rich.
According to this text, yes.
It sounds like it's saying the environment provides the stage, maybe, but not the script for your life.
That's a perfect analogy. The stage, but not the script. Think of a bustling city block. On one corner, you might have a thriving, expanding business. Right across the street, maybe a struggling venture, barely keeping its doors open.
Same environment, same customers nearby.
Exactly. Both operate in the very same environment, subject to the same local economy, the same regulations, the same potential customer base, yet their financial outcomes are vastly different. This illustrates really vividly that environment isn't the primary determinant. Something else, what the author calls the certain way, must be at play. It's a powerful refutation of external determinism.
Okay. And tied into that, there's the equally challenging idea that talent is not the sole determinant.
Ah, yes.
This one directly confronts that whole you have to be a genius myth or you need a unique gift idea, doesn't it?
It does, and this is an incredibly liberating point for many people, I think. The text asserts that possessing extraordinary or innate abilities, being a natural savant or a creative prodigy, is absolutely not a prerequisite for getting rich.
So you don't need to be special.
Well, it goes further. It actually describes wealthy individuals as often being an average lot in all respects.
An average lot. What does that mean exactly?
It means ordinary, typical. It means they have no greater talents and abilities than other men on average. They're just normal people in terms of their natural gifts, their intellect, or even their physical prowess.
Wow.
This directly challenges that deeply ingrained belief that you need to be some kind of unique genius or have a rare special gift to accumulate wealth.
That is incredibly encouraging, isn't it? It suggests that wealth is accessible to an average lot of people, not just the naturally gifted or those with exceptional IQs.
Mm-hmm.
It truly democratizes the pursuit of wealth in a way, makes it feel within reach for a vast majority. It shifts the focus from who you are inherently to what you do.
It absolutely does. It removes another significant mental barrier for countless individuals who might think, well, I'm not brilliant, so I can't be rich.
Yeah.
And the text also systematically debunks another deeply ingrained belief, one that's practically part of our collective financial wisdom. Saving and thrift are not the key.
Hold on. Merely being frugal, pinching every penny, isn't the primary path to wealth. That goes against what my grandparents always told me. Yeah.
Haha. Yes, it goes against a lot of traditional advice, and the author directly challenges it. The text argues that merely being frugal or penurious, and penurious means extremely poor or very stingy, unwilling to spend money,
Right.
is not the primary cause of wealth. And here's the striking, almost provocative observation. It points out that free spenders often get rich, while many thrifty, even penurious people remain poor.
That's truly counterintuitive.
Mm.
I can definitely think of examples, though. People who pinch every penny and just seem to scrape by, never really getting ahead, while others who seem to spend quite liberally maybe on advertising or better equipment or even just personal development somehow manage to, as the phrase goes, roll in wealth.
Right. It's almost as if some spending is actually an investment, not just an expense.
Exactly.
So this challenges the conventional wisdom that financial prudence, meaning just saving, is the sole or even the primary path to wealth. This concept shifts the focus from accumulation purely by restriction, hoarding resources, to creation by action, which, as we discussed, is central to the certain way. It's about strategic action and value creation, not just penny pinching. The author is essentially suggesting that wealth comes not primarily from what you keep, but from what you do and what you create.
So it's not about how much you save necessarily, but how you generate wealth. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of generation, the text also makes it abundantly clear that unique actions are not required.
Right.
And also that the specific business or profession is not key.
Right.
This implies you don't have to invent the next Facebook or be in some hot new industry or find some completely untouched niche market.
Precisely. That's the core point. Success isn't about doing things that are entirely unique or radically different from what others are trying and failing to do. The text observes that two people in the same business can do almost exactly the same things, selling the same products, using similar methods in similar locations.
Yet one succeeds and one fails.
Yet one prospers spectacularly and the other fails. This further emphasizes that wealth can be acquired in every business and in every profession or vocations. Doesn't matter if it's farming or finance, medicine or manufacturing. The type of work is not the primary determinant.
That's a powerful statement. It really reiterates that the way things are done is paramount. That's the word used, right?
Yes, paramount.
It's the underlying principle, the application of the certain way, not the specific activity or industry itself. It sounds like the secret sauce isn't in the ingredients of the recipe, but maybe in the chef's method.
You've absolutely got it. That's a great analogy. Think about it. Two coffee shops on the same street, maybe they even buy their beans from the same supplier, offer similar menus.
Okay.
One thrives. It expands, opens new locations, builds a loyal following. The other struggles and eventually, sadly, closes its doors.
Right. Same business, same street.
It's probably not the coffee itself or the industry being inherently flawed or even necessarily the location in isolation. It's how they operate, how they approach their business, how they interact with customers, their efficiency, maybe their vision. Something is different in the doing. This really reinforces the idea of the certain way being the crucial differentiating element. It brings it right back to that consistency and predictability we discussed earlier. The difference is in the application of the principles, not necessarily the industry's inherent potential.
Okay, so after systematically debunking those common misconceptions, the ones that often act like mental shackles for people, the text moves into a truly empowering idea: the accessibility and universality of this path to wealth. It's not just for a select few, right? Not for the privileged or the exceptionally gifted.
That's an absolutely vital component of this whole philosophy. Accessibility that refers to the quality of being easily reached, understood, or used by basically everyone.
So it's not hidden knowledge.
Exactly. The path isn't hidden behind arcane secrets or exclusive club memberships. And universality highlights its applicability to all cases or all people, regardless of their background, their current status, or their innate qualities.
That really broadens the appeal, doesn't it?
It does. This concept truly broadens the appeal of the certain way, ensuring you, the listener, understand it's not presented as some exclusive secret reserved for a lucky few. The author claims it's genuinely for everyone willing to learn and apply it.
And one of the most reassuring points here, I think, especially for anyone who maybe feels they aren't special enough, is that natural ability is not a barrier.
Yes.
This directly addresses that idea that you need to be inherently brilliant or exceptionally gifted to get rich.
It does, and it's incredibly inclusive language. The claim is that your innate skills or your intellectual capacity, whether you consider yourself a genius or perfectly average, do not prevent you from getting rich.
Down to the text to illustrate that.
Well, it goes to great lengths, actually. It uses contrasting examples like blockheads, which is, an informal, somewhat dismissive term for stupid or dull-witted people.
Right, not very PC nowadays.
No, definitely not. But it contrasts them alongside intellectually brilliant individuals. It also contrasts physically strong people with weak and sickly people. The point being made is that people from all these categories get rich. The author states quite plainly that you only need sense enough to read and understand these words and then, crucially, apply them.
Wow. That's a profoundly powerful message of hope and inclusion. It suggests anyone, regardless of their starting intellectual or physical attributes, can succeed if they just apply these principles. It really makes it feel within reach for that average lot of people, as we discussed earlier. It shifts the focus entirely from innate gifts to learned actions.
It absolutely removes another significant mental barrier for many people. It dismantles that self-limiting belief that only a chosen few are destined for financial success. The text then touches on an important practical consideration, though. It acknowledges that location counts for something. But it's crucial to understand it's definitely not everything, nor is it the primary factor we debunked earlier.
Right. So it's not the primary factor, as we heard, but it's not entirely irrelevant either. How does the text nuance this? What's the practical advice there?
It's basically a common sense acknowledgement of reality. While not the primary factor, a suitable location can play a minor, maybe supporting role. It implies the necessity of dealing with men, an old-fashioned phrase, but it means you need to be where there are people, where there's a market, where there are customers to serve.
Okay, that makes sense. You can't sell things if there's no one to sell to.
Exactly. The text uses the figurative phrase, heart of the Sahara, as an example of a highly unsuitable place for business.
Right. You wouldn't open a popular ice cream parlor in the middle of a vast, uninhabited desert, for instance. Doesn't matter how good your certain way is.
Precisely. So it's about being suited to your locality, meaning appropriate or well-matched to the specific area or community you're in. Like that ice cream parlor in a warm, populated climate.
So it's about general practical limitations, common sense considerations,
Yeah.
but always secondary to the certain way.
Exactly. It's acknowledging the stage, as you said earlier, but still emphasizing that the actor's performance, the how, is paramount.
Got it. The environment can make it easier or harder, but it doesn't determine the outcome.
That's the idea. It's a pragmatic nod to the realities of commerce, but it never lets those practicalities overshadow the core principle that how you do things is most important. And then one of the biggest reassurances the text offers, directly tackling a really widespread fear, is the crucial point that getting of capital is part of the process.
Oh, this is huge. I was waiting for this one because so many aspiring entrepreneurs or just people wanting to build wealth feel completely held back by a lack of capital or maybe the overwhelming burden of being deeply in debt. If it feels like you need money to make money,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't have it, you're just stuck.
This is a major insight in the book. It directly dismantles that common and, frankly, crippling self-limiting belief. The text asserts unequivocally that lack of initial capital is not a barrier.
Not a barrier.
Not according to this philosophy. It goes further, stating that acquiring financial assets, whether that's starting with a small seed fund or building it entirely from scratch, is a natural and inevitable result of doing things in a certain way.
Wow. So the capital comes because of the method.
Yes.
Yes.
Even if you start deeply in debt, the philosophy claims that capital will naturally flow to you because you are operating in a certain way. The method attracts the resources.
So you don't need money to start getting rich.
Yeah,
Getting rich brings the money as a direct consequence of applying the principles.
that's the claim.
That's a profound shift from a limiting belief to an empowering one. It implies that the action is the generator, not the existing resource you have.
Exactly.
I'd really encourage listeners to reevaluate their own beliefs about starting conditions for wealth, especially if you've ever felt held back by financial limitations. This idea alone could be a huge unlock.
It's a complete reversal of the typical you need money to make money mindset. It suggests that the application of specific principles creates the capital rather than requiring it as prerequisite. And finally, under this banner of universal accessibility, the text discusses two further concepts. Finding work that is congenial to you and that calls for the exercise of talents.
Okay, congenial, that means pleasant or agreeable because it suits your taste or temperament. Right. So doing something you genuinely like and calls for the exercise of talents means it requires or demands the use of your developed abilities, implying doing best in a business that aligns with your actual skill.
Right.
How do these fit into this scientific approach? Are they optional extras or are they part of the certain way?
That's a good question. These points highlight a more pragmatic aspect of applying the certain way. While the type of business itself isn't the sole determinant, meaning any business can lead to wealth if the principles are applied.
Right. We covered that.
Finding one that aligns with your personal inclinations, your passions, and your existing skills can certainly make the process more effective and probably more enjoyable and arguably more sustainable in the long run.
That just makes intuitive sense, doesn't it?
It does. You're far more likely to apply the certain way with sustained enthusiasm, creativity, and persistence in something you genuinely enjoy and are naturally pretty good at.
Rather than forcing yourself to do something you hate.
Exactly. It's about leveraging your personal strengths and passions within the framework of the larger principles, making the journey less of a chore and maybe more of a fulfillment.
So it's not about forcing yourself into a specific industry you hate just because you think that's where the money is.
Yeah.
It's about finding what feels aligned and authentic for you and then applying the certain way within that context. That adds another layer of practicality and maybe personalization to what might otherwise sound like a pretty rigid formula.
Well said. It acknowledges the human element within the scientific framework.
Makes perfect sense.
Oh.
Okay, we've now thoroughly explored the core philosophy, and we've systematically debunked some of those really deeply ingrained myths. Now, let's truly delve into the language itself,
Right, the nuts and bolts of the vocabulary.
because understanding these nuanced terms and idioms isn't just about, expanding your word list. It's about grasping the very essence, the sophistication of this philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
allowing you to articulate these complex ideas with real precision and clarity.
Absolutely. The precise language used in the text is crucial for conveying its unique approach and all those subtle distinctions we've been talking about. Let's start with some core philosophical terms that are sort of woven throughout the author's argument. For instance, the word tenets.
Tenets. Okay, I understand that as the main principles or beliefs of a theory or a philosophy or a doctrine, like the foundational tenets of this science of getting rich. What's the subtle impact of using that specific word?
Precisely. Using tenets kind of elevates the ideas, doesn't it? It moves them from mere suggestions to established principles that form the core belief system of the philosophy. It suggests a structured, thought-out doctrine, not just a random collection of good ideas.
Okay, because wait.
It does. Then there's the word replicable. If something is replicable, what does that truly imply in the context of acquiring wealth?
If something is replicable, it means it's able to be reproduced, repeated, or copied, especially in a process. I imagine this ties directly back to that idea of an exact science.
Exactly.
It's not a one-off miracle or just a stroke of luck, but a system that others can follow and theoretically achieve the same results.
That's the key. Replicable reinforces the scientific claim. It means if you follow the same steps, you'll get the same outcome, much like a chemical experiment that can be replicated in any lab, anywhere. It moves wealth acquisition from the realm of maybe art or intuition into the realm of a predictable process.
Got it. And speaking of propositions, the text posits this certain way as factual. What about posits?
To posit means to assume something as a fact, or to put it forward as a basis of argument, to propose or suggest it as a given.
So the author isn't just suggesting these ideas. They're presenting them as fundamental truths that form the basis of their entire argument. It's quite assertive.
Exactly. It's a strong verb choice, definitely conveys the author's conviction in these claims. Another key term we've discussed, which speaks directly to agency, is dictates. When we say wealth dictates actions, or maybe more accurately, the way you act dictates wealth, what's the power in that particular word?
Dictates. Yeah, that's strong. It means it strongly influences or determines something, or even commands or prescribes it. So the causality here is critical.
Right.
It's not external forces dictating whether you get rich,
Right.
but your specific actions, your certain way of doing things, that commands or prescribes the wealth you end up accumulating. It's a very active, very empowering word. Puts the control back with the individual.
That's a powerful way to frame personal agency, isn't it? It removes the idea of external control. Now, let's look at some of the idiomatic expressions and, turns of phrase that really bring this philosophy to life and make its arguments more vivid.
Okay, the colorful language.
We mentioned side by side earlier, used to show rich and poor individuals often living right next to each other. How does that simple phrase convey such a strong message?
It's such a vivid image, isn't it? Almost visual. It emphasizes that environment isn't the main determinant. You literally see wealth and poverty side by side, located or existing right next to each other, sometimes in the same apartment building or just across the street. This reinforces the idea that something beyond just location is at play. Because if location were primary, everyone in that immediate vicinity would be experiencing pretty similar financial outcomes, which they often don't.
Precisely. It makes the refutation of environmental determinism very concrete, very easy to picture. Another key phrase we saw was an average lot in all respects.
The average lot.
What's the everyday meaning of that, and why is its inclusion in this text so encouraging?
That one immediately made me think of just regular everyday people. It means ordinary, typical, not exceptional in any particular way.
Right.
And the text uses it to describe wealthy individuals, noting they often have no greater talents and abilities than other men. This really reinforces that message of accessibility we talked about.
Yeah.
It's basically saying you don't need a genius IQ or Olympic-level physical prowess. You just need to apply the principles. It's incredibly democratizing, makes it feel possible for anyone.
It really is. It takes away that intimidation factor. And then there's that informal phrase, roll in wealth. It's not formal language, but it creates a very clear picture.
Oh yeah, roll in wealth. It just gives such a clear, almost visual picture of someone having a great deal of money being extremely rich, doesn't it? It's quite aspirational. It conveys a sense of abundance, maybe even ease. Someone rolling in wealth isn't just rich. They're extremely rich, almost effortlessly so, it implies.
It is. It's a common, almost colloquial way of describing immense wealth, giving it a very relatable human feel. And consider the phrase on purpose or accidentally. This is used to explain that individuals might become rich by following the certain way, even without consciously intending to. What does that tell us about the underlying principles, do you think?
That implies a natural law is at play, doesn't it? Like gravity.
How so?
Well, if you stumble into the right actions, even without knowing you're following the certain way, the outcome is still the same. It suggests the principles are so fundamental, so universal, that they operate whether you're aware of them or not.
Like gravity.
Yeah. You don't have to believe in gravity or even understand it for it to affect you if you jump off a chair.
That's a great analogy. It reinforces the idea of an exact science with predictable effects, independent of belief. And then there's the phrase, no matter how hard they work or how able they are.
Oof. Yeah. That one really underscores a key and potentially quite challenging counterintuitive point, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, it emphasizes that even sheer diligence, relentless effort, and innate ability, things we usually see as absolute must-haves for success, are insufficient for wealth acquisition without the certain way.
Right. Hard work isn't enough.
It's a stark reminder that effort alone, or talent alone, won't guarantee success if the underlying approach, the methodology, is flawed or incomplete. You can work tirelessly in the wrong direction and still get absolutely nowhere.
A critical distinction. It separates this philosophy from a lot of common self-help advice that just says work harder. And we also extensively covered a lack of capital and being deeply in debt. Let's just quickly reiterate what these mean and, more importantly, why the text so emphatically claims they're not barriers if one follows the certain way.
Okay, so lack of capital is simply the absence or insufficiency of financial assets or funds needed for investment or business operations. Basically, not having enough money to start something. And deeply in debt means owing a large, often overwhelming amount of money, having significant financial liabilities.
And the text says,
the text vehemently reinforces that these are not barriers if one follows the certain way.
yeah,
Because the getting of capital is presented as an inherent, almost automatic part of the process itself.
right.
You don't need it to start. It comes as a result of operating in the certain way. That's the claim.
That's a truly revolutionary shift from a common limiting belief to an empowering one. Another nuanced phrase used is brought within the domain of something. This sounds quite formal, academic even.
It does. It means to make something fall under the scope, control, or category of a particular field or area.
And how is it used here?
The text uses it to emphasize how wealth acquisition is brought within the domain of exact science. It elevates it, doesn't it? From maybe an art or a game of chance or just a vague aspiration to a systematic, predictable discipline subject to precise laws. It's about categorization for the sake of establishing certainty and predictability.
Exactly. It's about framing it in a way that implies control and predictability, and then paramount. We touched on this, but it's worth revisiting. This word carries significant weight in the text.
Paramount, yeah. It means more important than anything else, supreme in importance.
And what is paramount, according to the text?
It's used to describe the way things are done the certain way. The method, the process, is paramount above all other factors. Talent, environment, capital, the specific industry. It emphasizes that the how is the ultimate determinant.
It places the emphasis squarely on execution and method. Good.
Yeah.
And finally, the word consequences. How does that fit in?
A consequence is simply a result or effect of an action or condition. Wealth, in this philosophy, is presented as a direct consequence of specific actions taken in the certain way.
So, not random?
Not random happenstance or a lucky roll of the dice. It's positioned as the inevitable outcome of applying the correct causes.
So it's all about direct cause and effect, where wealth is positioned as a predictable result, not an accidental one, and uniformly, rich or poor. How is that used?
That means in a consistent or unchanging manner, without variation. The text uses it in that hypothetical scenario we discussed to refute the idea that environmental factors would make everyone in an area similarly wealthy or poor.
Right, the side-by-side point.
Yeah. It argues that if environment were the key, everyone in a given locale would be uniformly rich or poor, which clearly isn't the case in reality. It's a direct appeal to observable fact to counter a common misconception.
Absolutely. And lastly, let's just quickly lock down prerequisite and frugality again, just to solidify their meaning in this context after exploring them.
Okay. A prerequisite is something that is required as a prior condition before something else can happen or exist.
And the text says?
The text firmly states that extraordinary talent is not a prerequisite for getting rich, reinforcing that idea of universal access again.
Good. And frugality?
Frugality is the quality of being economical with money or food, basic thriftiness. The text revisits it mainly to reiterate that mere frugality on its own is not the sole cause of wealth. It distinguishes it sharply from the certain way.
So it's not about being cheap.
It's about being effective, according to this framework. Strategic action over simple restriction. Hashtag tag outro. Okay, that was quite a deep dive into not just the meaning of wealth acquisition according to this source, but the precise and pretty powerful language used to describe it. These words, they really aren't just definitions to memorize, are they? They feel more like doorways. Doorways to a deeper, more nuanced understanding of this quite profound philosophy.
That's exactly right. And we'd strongly encourage you, our listener, to actively start using these words. Try integrating them into your speaking and your writing.
See how they feel.
Yeah. You'll likely find that it really does add clarity and sophistication and maybe a deeper level of insight to your communication about wealth or success or even just personal growth in general. Remember, like with any skill, practice makes perfect when you're mastering this kind of nuanced vocabulary. The more you use them, the more natural they'll become.
So here's maybe a little application challenge for you. Now that you've heard about the certain way and the precise language used to describe it, take a moment. Think about how you can start using these specific words in your own conversations, maybe even just in your own thoughts. How do these concepts, exact science, mathematical certainty, the primary determinant, debunking misconceptions, how do they fit into your own communication about financial success or business strategy or just your personal aspirations? Can you start to maybe see the certain way operating or not operating around you?
And building on that, here's a final thought to maybe mull over, something to think about after listening. If wealth truly is, as this text posits, an exact science, governed by predictable laws that produce like effects when followed.
Okay.
What does that imply about the nature of poverty or struggle? Does it suggest that they, too, might be consequences of specific actions or perhaps ways of thinking rather than merely unfortunate circumstances?
That's a challenging thought.
It is. This philosophy seems to suggest that just as there's a scientific path to wealth, there might also be a predictable path leading away from it. It's definitely a compelling, if maybe uncomfortable, idea to ponder as you reflect on these concepts.
Absolutely. A lot to think about there and potentially a lot to apply. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the language of wealth acquisition as presented in this specific source. If you found this helpful or maybe just thought-provoking, please do give us a like, share it with others who might benefit from this unique perspective, and of course, subscribe to the Learn English Lab YouTube channel for more language learning content.
We really appreciate you being with us on this journey of discovery. Until next time.